out of the blue now we are being called human traffickers because we hire technical people who we pay top dollar equal to local rates. I just came back from California, and if I never there again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. But what matters to us is principles. And I have said over and over that principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Now, we don't have to shout, but we can be resolute. And I therefore look forward to standing with my CARICOM brothers. I wish I could say brothers and sisters, but brothers, to be able to ensure that we explain that what the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person.
In terms of Cuban doctors in Jamaica, let us be clear. The Cuban doctors in Jamaica have been incredibly helpful to us. Jamaica has a deficit in health personnel, primarily because many of our health personnel have migrated to other countries. We are, however, very careful not to exploit the Cuban doctors who are here. We ensure that they are treated within our labor laws and benefit like any other worker. So any characterization of the program by others certainly would not be applicable to Jamaica. We are ensuring that our program complies with all the international laws and standards to which we are a party to.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. My name is Dash Lifestyle. Kindly for watching me for the first time, remember to subscribe, like, share, and also comment. So guys, I want us to watch this warning message from Caribbean leaders. They are sending this warning message to United States government, to Donald Trump, telling Donald Trump to leave the Caribbean countries alone, because recently United States Secretary Marco Rubio, he came out and sent a threat to Caribbean leaders, telling the Caribbean leaders to end their relationship with Cubans doctor. The Caribbean leaders should not support Cuban doctors or do business with Cuban doctors. And if the Caribbean leaders, they are not going to end their relationship or to end not to support Cuban doctors, the United States will cancel their visa. The United States will sanction their visa. Majority of the Caribbean leaders, they have come out and reply and respond to this threat by telling the United States, by telling Donald Trump with his administration to stay away from Caribbean country. Kindly guys, I don't want to talk too much. Watch this video till the end, then I'll be back with more comment.
The United States government is cracking down on Cuban medical missions across the world, accusing Cuba of labor exploitation and threatening to revoke visas of foreign government officials involved in Cuba's labor export program. General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party Civic and the sitting Vice President Barry Jagdeo says CARICOM is engaging the Trump administration on the issue.
I can assure you that there is a regional as well as national engagement with the U.S. State Department on these matters.
The United States' position is that the labor programs run by the Cuban government is enriching the Cuban regime. The U.S. also argued that those involved are complicit in the exploitation and forced labor of Cuban workers. Guyana's vice president believes that Cuban professionals are invaluable to Guyana's healthcare system.
We want to have Cuban professionals work in our health system. They have been an invaluable support to our health system, but we also want to ensure that they have free choice.
The new U.S. policy prompted several Caribbean leaders to denounce the plans, stressing the importance of Cuban medical staff working across the region. Some Caribbean leaders have reportedly said they would forego their visas in a staunch resistance to the new U.S. policy. Is Guyana prepared to do the same?
We don't do diplomacy in the public. And I believe we have a strong engagement with the Trump administration and with the State Department that would allow this matter to be resolved to the satisfaction of all parties.
Guyana has, for decades, benefited significantly from the Cuban scholarship program, especially in training of doctors and also the provision of members of the Cuban Medical Brigade. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.
I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. What the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person.
The hemodialysis which we do in St. Vincent at the Modern Medical and Diagnostic Center with these 60 persons, without the Cubans there, I will not be able to offer that service. Does anybody expect that to go because I want to keep a visa, that I would let 60 persons from the poor and working people to die? It will never happen.
Out of the blue now we are being called human traffickers because we hire technical people who we pay top dollar equal to local rates. I just came back from California, and if I never there again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
In terms of Cuban doctors in Jamaica, let us be clear. The Cuban doctors in Jamaica have been incredibly helpful to us. Jamaica has a deficit in health personnel, primarily because many of our health personnel have migrated to other countries. We are, however, very careful not to exploit the Cuban doctors who are here. We ensure that they are treated within our labor laws and benefit like any other worker. So any characterization of the program by others certainly would not be applicable to Jamaica. We are ensuring that our program complies with all the international laws and standards to which we are a party to.
Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, is supporting the move by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley not to be intimidated of the support given by Cuban health services. Earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump and Senator Marco Rubio criticized Cuba's medical missions, labeling them as forced labor and threatening visa sanctions against countries employing Cuban doctors. Speaking at the commissioning of the Port of Spain's Central Block on Monday, Dr. Rowley defended Trinidad and Tobago's right to hire Cuban health professionals. And at the UWI's Campus Council meeting on Tuesday morning, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles touched on the issue.
I saw the Prime Minister of the Republic here, Dr. Rowley, making it clear that this country will not be intimidated in respect of the support given it by the Cuban health services. And we're being told that we have to pay a price if we continue to collaborate on a regional basis. I see the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, has said the same thing.
And Sir Hilary said the University of the West Indies has been leading from the front in terms of this regional unity and partnership.
Of Havana right now, when you walk into the center square of the University of Havana, you will see a building. And on that building, it says, University of the West Indies, Center for Sustainable Development. There, in Havana, in their university, we built that there, working with the government and people of Cuba. And I was honored to go over there and pull that ribbon to allow the UV.
So I was in Miami, or Hialeah on Monday, and when there's a video where you were recognizing Elena Garcia and Dario Fernandez and Tomas Regalado, everybody applauded. They're so excited about your being the Secretary of State. Your homegrown son, and so they're just all excited. The other thing they're excited about is that they have somebody that is going to care about Venezuela and Cuba and Haiti and Nicaragua, all the problems, because you've been so vocal. So I guess, can you just go through sort of one by one and say, look, we know what are our options? Not that you know exactly what you're going to do, and a lot of these decisions will be made by somebody else anyway. But what are, like right now, look at what's going on in Venezuela. The Biden administration's allowed oil to flow. He stole the election, completely violated what Biden told him he would do. Maria Corina Machado probably was only alive because of your hard work making sure that Donald Trump put a tweet out. You look at Cuba now. They just dropped the state-sponsored terrorism, which makes no sense. We've got people like Jose Daniel Ferrer in prison. Kids as young as 14 in prison for peaceful protests. So, give me some of your ideas of what is possible.
Let's take one, but let's start with Haiti, because in many ways it's globally complex, and I think the chairman sort of alluded to this a moment ago. There's a fundamental problem in Haiti, in that there is no legitimacy of authority. And I say this in recognition of the fact that some of the national police forces in Haiti have been extraordinarily brave. Despite being outgunned and outmanned, these guys and gals have stuck at their post and fought back against armed gangs. You know, when the most powerful person in any nation state is nicknamed barbecue, that is not a good thing. And this guy obviously is not named that for good reasons. He's not a cook. These are bad gang elements that are operating within Haiti and have destabilized not just Haiti, but threatened to destabilize the Dominican Republic, not to mention the migratory pressure that it places on the United States, on the Bahamas, and on other places in the region. There is no easy answer. The Kenyans are there, and I can tell you, I think they deserve a lot of credit for being willing to take on that mission. In recent days, missions from various other countries have arrived, El Salvador being among them, to sort of contribute to that effort. I don't think anyone can tell you they have a master plan for how you fix that overnight. I do think it does begin with stability and security. You've got to establish some baseline security, and it's not going to come from a U.S. military intervention. So to the extent that we can encourage foreign partners, and I would include foreign partners in the Western Hemisphere, who should be contributing to this effort, to provide some level of stability and security in Haiti so that you can explore the opportunities to have a transitional government that has legitimacy, that can ultimately lead to the conduct of elections, and then have governing bodies in that country that can bring about a nation state that can begin to build some of the things you need in order for permanency. But it's going to take a long time. And I say this with sadness in my heart. There have been good times and there have been bad times and worse times in Haiti, but sadly, there's not really been a golden era in Haiti's history, and your heart breaks for these people and for what they've gone through. But you also, as a policymaker in the United States, recognize the implications it's had on our country. It's not just in the migratory pressures it's placed on us, but as I pointed out earlier, the threat it poses on a daily basis to destabilizing the Dominican Republic. You mentioned Nicaragua. It's a very weird situation, for lack of a better term. The Sandinistas earlier, one of the first things they did in the new year is they kicked out every nun in the country. They've gone to war with the Catholic Church, which was the last institution in the country capable of standing up to them. But now they've begun this process of amending their fake constitution to basically create a family dynasty, so that Ortega and his wife will now be co-presidents. There's no democracy that's been completely wiped out. They have literally put plane loads of opposition figures and exported them here to the United States and around the world. They literally arrested anyone who signed up to run for president. They arrested every single, you signed up to run for president, they put you in jail. So it's a big challenge, but our national interest is most challenged. Number one, because of migratory pressure. Number two, because the Nicaraguan regime is allowing people to fly into Nicaragua visa-free from anywhere in the world and then transit to the United States. They have become the point of entry for people from all over the world because you come in without any visa. They charge you $1,000 or whatever the going rate is today. And from there, you get on the migratory route and into the United States. They have been direct contributors to the migratory crisis we face at our southern border. And the third is the Nicaraguans have basically invited the Russians to establish a military naval presence in Nicaragua, in our hemisphere. That poses a threat to our national security. That needs to be addressed. Venezuela, sadly, is not governed by government. It's governed by a narco-trafficking organization that has empowered itself of a nation state. And we have seen, I believe, upwards of 7, 8, 9 million Venezuelans have just left the country. More are expected to leave. I was in strong disagreement with the Biden administration because they got played the way I knew they would get played. They entered into negotiations with Maduro. He agreed to have elections. The elections were completely fake. They leveraged migration against us to get those concessions, and now they have these general licenses where companies like Chevron are actually providing billions of dollars of money into the regime's coffers, and the regime kept none of the promises that they made. So all that needs to be re-explored. Because in Venezuela, you have the Russian presence, you have a very strong Iranian presence. The Iranians, in fact, are beginning to build drone factories for the manufacture of Iranian drones in our own hemisphere. Not to mention the long practice of the Venezuelan regime of providing real but illegitimate passports to operatives for Hezbollah in our own hemisphere. And lastly, and I leave it lastly to Cuba because it's one that's been more enduring, the problem in Cuba basically is that despite being a communist regime and Marxism not working, is that they've decided, and they thought what they would do is that they would create this holding company. It's called Gaesa. It is a company that they own by the Cuban military, and that holding company owns everything that makes money in Cuba. If it makes money in Cuba, they own it, and it generates revenue for them. The Miami Herald just did an expose on Gaesa. And while you have electrical blackouts and you have all these other problems economically in Cuba, Gaesa is sitting on billions of dollars that they've generated for their permanency. In 2017, the Trump administration sanctioned Gaesa. Unfortunately, the Biden administration lifted some of those sanctions and restrictions a couple of years ago, which increased the amount of money they're able to generate through things like manipulating remittances and the like. And then yesterday, the Biden administration announced they were rescinding all of the sanctions on Gaesa, which basically the sanctions were this. You can do business with an independent individual Cuban, but you cannot, it's the regime that doesn't allow it. You cannot do business with anything owned by that government-run entity. And yesterday, they lifted the sanctions on them. Now, the new administration is not bound by that decision, but nonetheless, that's what's in place. Ultimately, the reality, the moment of truth is arriving. Cuba is literally collapsing, both generationally in terms of all the young people leaving, but it's also collapsing economically. They are now living on 20 and 21-hour rolling blackout and some days longer because Marxism doesn't work, because they're corrupt, and because they're inept. And they're going to have a choice to make, those that are in charge there. Do they open up to the world? Do they allow the individual Cuban to have control over their economic and political destiny, even though it threatens the security and stability of the regime? Or do they triple down and just say, we'd rather be the owners and controllers of a fourth world country that's falling apart and has lost 10% of its population in the last 2 years. And that's a dynamic that they're facing right now. I hope that they will choose the path of empowering the individual Cuban so that the individual Cuban has the ability to do what the peoples of virtually every other country in the hemisphere have been able to do at least once in the last 60 years, and some more than once, and that is elect their leaders, vote for their leaders. You think about what happened here today. The Cuban people have no idea what it's like to have an authority figure or someone in charge and power, like I am as a U.S. Senator, sitting here having to answer questions from his colleagues, and also having to have people in the back screaming and protesting against you. You can't do that to a Cuban official. You can't question their decisions. The Cuban people have never been able to participate in a political process for almost 70 years now. And they're entitled to that as much as the people of Colombia and Argentina and Paraguay and Peru and virtually every other country in the region has enjoyed.
So let's assume you have this job, you're confirmed, you have the job for 4 years. What would your definition of success be?
With regards to generally?
Your job. You're just...
The alignment of our foreign policy to our national interest has been defined the security, prosperity of the American people. And that's it. And by the way, I would define that as success for the country. What I would define as success for the State Department is not just that alignment, but making the State Department highly relevant again. Sadly, and I think I've shared this with you in some of our meetings with many of my colleagues, what has happened over the last 20 years under multiple administrations is the influence of the State Department has declined at the expense of other agencies and also at the expense of national security councils, because it takes so long for the State Department to take action. And so increasingly, you stop getting invited to the meetings, and they stop putting you in charge of things because it takes too long to get a result. So we want the State Department to be relevant again, and it should be, because the State Department has a plethora of talented people who are subject matter experts and who have skills in diplomacy, and it's not being fully utilized because increasingly on issue after issue, we've seen the State Department marginalized because of internal inertia, because of the way the structure works. So we have to be able to we have to be at that table when decisions are being made, and the State Department has to be a source of creative ideas and effective implementation. So I would define making the State Department relevant again in the setting of our foreign policy is critical. And I think that's something that maybe is not as perceived by the general public as it is by those of us who watch it on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So guys, I hope you have watched that video and you have seen how the Caribbean leaders, they have stand firm supporting the Cubans doctor in their country, because United States, they came out, United States Secretary, that is Marco Rubio, he came out and threatened these Caribbean leaders. He was telling the Caribbean leaders, if you are not going to end your relationship with Cuban doctors or stop supporting Cuban doctors, your visas to United States, it is going to be cancelled. They are going to sanction the Caribbean leaders' United States visa. But majority of Caribbean leaders, they have joined hands, they have come together, and they have decided to reply to the United States, telling United States, if you are going to end our visa because of us allowing the Cuban doctors to come and help our people, let it be, because there is no need of us Caribbean leaders having United States visa while our people, they are dying. And we all have seen what the Cuban doctors, they have been helping lives in the Caribbean. For example, in Jamaicans, the Cuban doctors, they have been in Jamaicans for more than 20 years, and these Cuban doctors, they have really boosted when it comes to the healthcare of Jamaicans. And also the Cubans, we all know the Cubans, they are profession, they are having more professional and experienced doctors when it comes to the healthcare. And we have seen also majority of Cuba's doctor, apart from going to Jamaica, also they have helped so much countries in Africa. We have seen, for example, the countries in the African, they love to hire the Cuban doctors to help them when it comes to the healthcare. So now United States wants all the Caribbean leaders to end their relationship and not support the Cuban doctors. For me, I can tell you that United States, it is known of controlling some of the to turn leaders into puppet and give them instruction. But right now things have changed. I'm so happy to see Caribbean leaders coming together and sending also a message to United States, telling them, leave our countries alone. You cannot decide our relationship with other country, because how comes the United States, they want the Caribbean country to end their relationship with Cuba? If United States wants, it doesn't want the Cubans in United States, it should ban them in United States only, not going out and telling and sending threats and warning to the other countries in the Caribbean, which they are having the good relationship with Cubans, to end their relationship. So for me, I can tell United States that it is a bad move that you are making to the Caribbean, to the black countries in the Caribbean, because I know United States, they are threatening these leaders by telling them that if you are not going to end their relationship, we are not going to allow your children, your family, and you yourself to come in United States. And also, the United States promised that they are going to end their trading benefit that they usually receive from United States. For me, I can tell you that United States, it thinks that it because it is one of the first world country, it can able to control the other country easily. Yeah, that it is what United States they always think about, because this country, United States, it has been controlling some of the black countries. It has been issuing some traveling banning to some of the countries in the Caribbean. The United States, it came and issued 3 advisory warning to their citizens not to go in Jamaica. Yeah, these people, they told their citizens not to go in Jamaica. Jamaica, there is a fight. It is not stable. These are people that are being robbed. The country, there is a gunfight going on the street. So they advised their citizens not to go to Jamaica. And right now, we are seeing that they are coming to Jamaica, telling the Jamaican Prime Minister to not allow the Cuban's doctor to operate in Jamaica, or to give them support to come to Jamaica. For me, I can tell you this United States, how comes you are coming and advising your citizen not to go to Jamaica, and yet again you are coming to Jamaica, to Jamaican Prime Minister, telling Jamaican Prime Minister to end their relationship with Cuba. Which country does that? Even if you are a superpower country, which country does that? Which country decides the relationship of other country? For me, I know Jamaicans as a country, it cannot advise United States. They cannot tell United States that don't support this country, don't support this country. Why is it United States coming out and telling the Caribbean countries not to support the Cuban doctors? For me, I can tell you that I'm so proud of seeing Caribbean leaders coming together and also replying to this threat that the United States, they are issuing to them by telling them that you, United States, you need to leave our country alone. The Caribbean countries, they know exactly what they are doing. The Cuban doctors, they have been in so many Caribbean countries for years, and there is no they are not exploiting, or they are not doing anything bad to this Caribbean country. If the Cuban doctors, they were doing something bad in the Caribbean countries, these people, they could the relationship with Cuba and this Caribbean country, some of the Caribbean country, it could be ended some years ago. But right now, these people, they have stayed for more than 30 years in the Caribbean country, and yet the United States, they are coming out and saying that these people, they are very bad. You cannot allow them in your country. What? United States, shame on you guys. And this administration of United States, it is something else. For me, I can tell you that right now, the people who are leading, the leaders of United States, these people, they need to be so they need to be more serious, because you can't just go and interfere with countries in the Caribbean affair with others country. Maybe soon you could be also telling the Caribbean country to end their relationship with Africa, because you guys, you know, these people, they came from Africa. Majority of black people in the Caribbean, they came from Africa. So you guys right now, you are telling them to end their relationship with Cuba. Next, you could be telling them that not to go to Africa, not to end their relationship with Africa. So for me, I can tell the Caribbean countries, they need to be more careful with this United States, because we have seen what these people they have started to do. They want to control some of the black countries in the Caribbean. They want to determine that which country should have a relationship with this country. You know, when these people they are having a problem with another country, they want now to go ahead and spread the lies and bad things about the country that they are having a bad relationship with. Yeah, this is the thing that these people they want to do, because these people they think that they are superpower, they can influence some of the black countries to end their relationship with other country. That it is not right. So kindly guys, subscribe if you haven't, like this video, share and also comment. See you in my next one. Bye bye guys.